Welcome into the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier. This is the first Monday after the calendar board era has started, and we've got many things that we're going to talk about. The playbook is the weekend recap, the good, the bad, the ugly, Bama takeaways, and what's next around SEC and the nation and more. Going to kick it back to you.
All right, welcome in on this beautiful Monday morning. We're live, local, and ready to get things rolling right here on your home for Alabama sports. Tide 100.9, 12:30 a.m. is not with us today. We're doing just a straight live stream edition. So all of those who follow just on the radio airwaves, we'll miss you. But for those of you who get up and at them with us on the live stream, we're so glad that you've chosen to get with us this morning. I know it's Labor Day, so some of you all may be sleeping in, so you may be catching this on a playback. But for me, man, I just could not miss being on the air the Monday following the new coach. Okay. We have a brand new coach in Tuscaloosa, and there was no way that I was going to be sleeping in this morning when you, our listeners, want to talk about what you saw this past weekend. Xavier quickly went over the playbook, and we'll circle back on those things. We'll add Kennington Smith III to the conversation as well in the second quarter. But X, it's just so exciting to be on the air talking about football on a Monday morning versus what we think may happen. So this is the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care. Go check out boxeyecare.com, boxeyecare.com. Dr. Daniel Box and his team are there to serve you. They have that great new lab that's going to give you a great selection of inventory, which also means competitive prices for you, which also means that you're going to get the same great service with more choices. So that's Box Eye Care. And remember that this is the day that the Lord has made, so let's rejoice and be glad in it. Take some time today to notice someone, love someone, serve someone, be the difference you want to see in the world today. There are no phone lines today, but you can still add your comments, your reactions, and your thoughts to the chat. And X, circle back one more time on what's the playbook for today.
Yes, the playbook for today, the first Monday after the season is kicked off, is, of course, the weekend recap as we talk about the game, the things that we saw, the things that we liked, that we loved, the good, the bad, the ugly. Bama takeaways from the game. What's your opinions on this team and what you saw? What's next and around the SEC and the nation? As it was an interesting weekend in college football with some close games with some teams that you really wouldn't have expected it.
Yeah, it's a couple of those.
Yeah. But so to kick things off, Alabama wins 63-0 to kick off the Kalen DeBoer era. A absolute dominant performance on both sides of the ball. And there's some just what were your thoughts of the game?
Well, for me, it's I posted on the Facebook yesterday. I posted some pictures from the Alabama football website X, and I did an offensive side of it and said they answered the call. And then I did some defensive pictures that said that the swarm was buzzing. They got 63 points, could have gotten more. Without a doubt. And then could have got to 70 easily. But they also shut out the other opponent. So, shut out the opponent. So both sides answered the bell to me. People go, well, it was Western Kentucky. I said, Western Kentucky is picked to win their division. Now, Western Kentucky is not an SEC opponent, but they're not Furman. They're not Idaho. They're not, Alabama State. Western Kentucky is a D1 school picked to win their conference, right? So the dominance was clear, and you could still see the speed and what we've been hearing about how these guys are having fun and love to play the game. To me, that was the types of things I saw in there. X.
100%. I mean, just it was fast all over. Talk about the swarm day. That was 100% evident on Saturday. But then when you look at the way how fast the offense played, I mean, 42 points in the first half on 20 snaps. Alabama had the ball for less than 7 minutes in the first half and scored. That's insane. I don't care who you're playing.
Right. I mean, they had 3 drives in a row with three scoring drives in a row that were 2 plays. X. And this is, like I said, that's what I looked at was how did Alabama play? Now, X, I know a lot of people kind of look at the offensive side of the ball, and it started off kind of messed up, right? Like kind of off kilter, and we had 6 penalties in the first probably 10 minutes of the game. But you know what I contributed that to? I 2 things happened to me that threw off and once they settled in, it was over. That is Caden Proctor's injury threw, I think, chemistry off a little bit. Just because you just lost your dude. You just lost one of your guys. And if you've never played the game, you don't fully understand what that can do. It messes you up when you get a whole week to replace a starter, much less going back into the locker room and realizing you're going to do it. And then the headsets. I think the headset hurt offense and defense more than we know. The headset issue, and you guys may not have seen. You were at the stadium, Max. You couldn't see how visibly upset Coach DeBoer was about the headset issue. I mean,
you could. Are you talking about to kick the game off?
Yes.
Yeah, you saw. You couldn't tell what was being said, but you could tell something was up, something was wrong because Deontay Lawson walked out on the field. There was an issue. He walks to the sideline. Then he goes back onto the field. Then back to the sideline. And he repeated that process. And I was sitting there going, what's going on? What's the issue? He kept taking his helmet off, putting it back on. You could tell there was an issue, but not knowing exactly what it was at the stadium.
Yeah, it was the headsets, and it was big time. Like and I think that impacted both sides of the ball, but I think it impacted the offense more than it did the defense. So, so yeah, that was huge, X.
Yeah, I mean, and it's first time in game that they have these. So the fact that there were bugs that need to be worked out kind of comes with the territory of it. But Alabama was able to get it fixed and get things going, and once they got it, they were rolling. You talk about the injury to Caden Proctor, and nobody knows the full severity of it yet. Hopefully, it's not too serious, and if he misses a game, another game or two, that's the extent of it. Hopefully, we'll find out more information on that today. But you hate to see that, but once Elijah Pritchett gave up the sack on the first drive, once he settled in, he was pretty solid the rest of the way.
Yeah, and for me, man, I look at that wasn't a quick sack. It's 2 things. The sack wasn't a quick sack, like you know what I mean, like blow by sack. In my opinion, it was. I think Jalen after that first drive also said, "Okay, if I need to run, I'm gonna take off." Sometimes these dual threat guys want to prove they can throw the ball, and Coach DeBoer keeps saying, "Just be who you are, Jalen. Just be who you are." But to going from I'm going to be the backup to I'm the starter at left tackle can sometimes take a second. And you have to also remember, where do you think he got the majority of his reps all week, all summer?
Right tackle.
Right tackle. So overall, I would give him an A on what he did. Anything else you want to get to before we get to the break? I mean, there's so much to get to. We'll be talking about this game all week long, with Alabama already starting off as a 30-something point favorite X against South Florida, a team that kind of maybe saved our season and saved Jalen Milroe last year, because if that game goes the way everybody probably would have liked for it to have gone, then Jalen Milroe may not have come back to be the quarterback, and Jalen Milroe wouldn't be in the Crimson Tide jersey right now. So as ugly as that game was, it may have saved us for last year and this year. So anything else before we get to break?
No, but we'll pick up with more takeaways from the game on the other side.
Yep, and we'll add Kennington Smith III to the conversation as we move throughout the morning. I want to thank all of you. We're already getting some comments over on the chat side of things. We want to thank all of you for getting up and at them with us on this Labor Day. This is the Martin Houston Show with Martin and Xavier, powered by Box Eye Care. We'll take a break and be back in just a moment. Check out the great folks. Check out the great folks over at Box Eye Care, Daniel Box, OD, 205-342-0660. Box Eye Care, boxeyecare.com. They have a great new location where they are going to take care of all of the things you've come to expect from them, but they've also added that new in-house lab where you're going to get a great choice of inventory. In most cases, you're going to be able to get in and out with a stylish new look in 1 hour or less. And it's also going to mean that you're going to get great competitive prices. That's Box Eye Care, providing you the same great service that you've always expected and a whole lot more. Visit Box Eye Care, boxeyecare.com, 205-342-0660. That's Box Eye Care. Dr. Daniel Box and his team are waiting on an opportunity to serve you. Visit them at 5003 Oscar Baxter Drive. All right, X, let's go ahead and get ready to get things started back up.
All right. We got Kennington joining us now.
Go ahead and get things started back up.
All right, as we get things going, we're going to continue the conversation of takeaways from Saturday. And I'm going to go ahead and tip my hat to the man, the myth, the legend, Pat, with his absolute spot-on prediction of Ryan Williams' performance. Pat, if you're listening, we shout out now. If not, I will definitely give it to you tomorrow again, as you definitely deserve it, Ryan Williams. What a performance from the 17-year-old. It was 2 catches, 139 yards, 2 touchdowns, 84 yards, and 55 yards on his 2 catches, breaking the tackle on the second one to get into the end zone. What are your thoughts on Ryan Williams, the should-be senior in high school? Absolutely dominating.
Well, you know, it was special, and we do have Kennington in, so we'll bring him in as well before I respond to that. Good morning, Kennington. How you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are y'all?
Doing well, doing well. Hey, I'll let you respond to the Ron Williams thing. And for those who may not know, last week we all laughed at Pat when he said that Ron Williams will have 125 yards receiving. And yeah, he got it, but I don't think he was anticipating 2 catches for 139 yards. I think he was anticipating a lot more pass plays, a lot more receptions, but he still nailed the yardage side. And as far as the contest goes, X in Kennington, we had J Rob had 56-13. D9 had 57. Timothy Robinson had 59-10. D9 had 57-13. You know who got the closest? Me, 59-6. So I thought they get a couple late. And had they got the field goals when had they kicked the 2 field goals instead of chasing, they would have got the 6. But anyway, Kennington, what's your thoughts in terms of Ryan Williams and his first game explosion?
Yeah, I feel like in a lot of ways it was just a very fitting debut for him. Like just considering all of the hype, and it was one of those things where it's like you tried not to buy into the hype, but reading the tea leaves from when he arrived on campus to now, this felt like something that we probably should have been anticipating. Maybe not 2 catches for 140 and
Right.
2 touchdowns, but some type of impact week one. Usually, when recruits come in highly ranked, especially ones that reclassify, there is a tendency to kind of downplay it a bit. Like, oh, he's young, he's learning, we'll see what happens. Anytime Ryan Williams' name was brought up throughout fall camp, it was like people's eyes lit up, from players to coaches, speaking effusively about him. So from that standpoint, we probably should have anticipated it, but it was an incredible debut. And I just can't wait to see what he does the rest of the way, honestly.
Yeah, X, and I'll talk back to you after this. To me, once again, though, I'm still disappointed with ESPN. All they talked about was a kid from Ohio State. Every highlight. I never saw them highlight Ron Williams. And it was on there. It was an ESPN game. All they talked about, I'm talking about post game. I'm like, okay, did anybody see what Ryan Williams did? The freshman that should be a high school. Anyway, that's just a quick sidebar from Martin. With ESPN, the Bama hate is still real. I don't think it's Saban hate. I think it's Bama hate. X.
Yeah, Kennington, looking at this game, what were some of your takeaways from the team performance and then some individual performances?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was obviously a lot of good. I do think there were some things though that were not quite buttoned up on, as I went back and rewatched it. So the good things, I would say pulling linemen was like the biggest thing that I saw offensively that kind of caught my eye. The variety in which they were able to do it: 2 guards, guard center, guard tackle. They were cooking in that regard. I thought the pass protection was shaky. So we're looking forward to that against South Florida. And if I could highlight anybody individually, it'd probably have to be on defense. I thought the front seven was awesome on Saturday. Jahad Campbell looks like he's taking a second-year leap as a starter. Quay Russaw, really strong performance. Led all the Wolves in snaps, which I didn't anticipate, but he played really well.
Your Quay Russaw's comment is an understatement of the year.
He was
awesome. That dude was like, okay, who did we lose to the draft? Right. I mean, I Kennington. I know I jumped in front of you, Xavier, but Kennington, you said on your last show with us, you said, well, opportunity. Alabama's biggest opportunity on defense is what can that Wolf position do? Do they have a guy that can step up? And he may have been like the third guy that we were anticipating, because you look at Robinson and you look at Cole, and this dude starts, and it was like, oh, this is not a fluke.
No, exactly. And give it up. I mean, Q Robinson.
Yeah. Oh,
Q. Keanu in the second half, Coot had some good moments as well. All three of them flashed at their individual moments. They all played well. So,
Well, hey, let me ask you this, X, and jump back in here. But what about Q playing middle linebacker on third down? The way we I don't know if you picked up, but we go to a 3-3 defense on third down sometimes. In the middle linebacker is Q, and he's bringing pressure from different places. Um, I was like, okay, that's different. But I like the way they played against Western Kentucky.
yeah, and if I could, on that note, something else I would say individually highlight that led to a bigger theme: the ascension of Justin Jefferson, allowing Kane Womack to put Jahad Campbell on the edge on third down,
Yes.
opposite of Q Robinson or Quay Russell, wherever it is. Brilliant sub package. You put, Jahad Campbell back at his kind of natural edge where he played in high school. You don't give up any integrity in the middle of the field. And then at that point, you look across that front seven and you have two speed rushers on the interior. You have those two guys on the outside,
Mhm.
Lawson Jefferson in the second level. It's a lot of speed, a lot of athleticism. So when we've been talking throughout August about creating pressure in different ways. I think you, Martin, said that Kane Womack is going to be able to cook some things up. That sub package is an example of the creativity that the athleticism that Bama's defense allows. So that was another thing that stuck out to me.
I'm glad you brought that up because that was one of the points that I noticed, that sub package. Right? I mean, you look at the way that this defense moves guys around, and it takes advantage of their skill sets. Then just the rotation. I looked up at one point and you had Xavier Brown, Mbakwe, and Mitzi and Morgan all out there at the same time. They're going to get these young guys reps and experience as early as they can. And that's one of the things that I love seeing. That love Coach Saban, but we always talked about the backups don't get enough actual PT and reps. And so you're spending the spring and the summer and the fall the next year trying to get those guys game ready. Well, that's not going to be the case with this coaching staff. These guys are going to get ready and thrown into the fire. And all of those young guys, every single one of these guys made plays at some point throughout the course of the game. Bray Hubbard, when he came in at safety. So you go and, man, Alabama won this game in a dominating fashion. But not only did they win it in a dominating fashion, they won it in a way that's going to get young guys experience in key moments.
Hey, and before Kennington, you respond to that, X, I think we need to I think we need to requote what you just said. That wasn't getting young guys experience. He did not. You guys were at the game, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so you all didn't hear what's his name's interview that they do with the coaches. He with Coach DeBoer. He didn't reference the first half as young guys getting reps and playing time and getting film. Okay. So what we saw in the first half, you would typically say, oh, they're working in young guys, right? But when they interviewed DeBoer late in the second half, when all the other guys, that second level of guys came in, because Mbakwe, Morgan, all those guys were playing in the midst of the first half. He said it's going to be good to get the young guys reps in the second half. So to me, he's not looking at Mbakwe and Morgan as a separate group from the first group. Kennington, your response or thoughts to that? Because you have to listen to what he says.
Yeah.
He did not refer to them as getting film to evaluate. That's how you're going to work with the second guy. And you guys had no way of seeing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that point is very astute. And DeBoer kind of mentioned that after the game. He said, this was always kind of the plan, to just have a very deep rotation of guys. Throughout August, that conversation was mainly centered around the defensive line. That's typically the position where you see most of the rotations at. But there was clearly a plan to get all of these guys opportunities. And if you remember last week when we were talking about this, Martin, I said, when you look at these position battles, you can look at them half full or half empty. The half full is all of these guys have played so well that we have to give them an opportunity in the game. And that's what it kind of felt like on the defensive side.
Yep.
Everybody that played in that first half extensively, they played over 20 guys in the first half in the midst of, like you said, the actual, when the game was not in doubt, but when it was, in the first half. So I was pretty blown away by that strategy. Haven't really seen that at Alabama or really any high major school to be playing that many guys in the first half. So and then DeBoer after the game noted, especially we were talking about the freshmen, that there are often times where as a coach you watch for certain players that you don't fully trust on the field to make sure that they're confident. He said with those guys, I don't have that problem at all. So that I think is very telling about how these young guys have kind of progressed, and it'll be interesting to see what this rotation looks like as we get into SEC play. And I think obviously, they might cut down the rotation. I would assume, kind of once they get into the SEC schedule. But these first few weeks is going to be really interesting to see how they rotate in.
X.
Yeah, and we're going to continue this conversation on the other side as well as talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of this Alabama game. not a lot of ugly that you can take away from a 63-0 win, but we'll talk about it where we can and the things that Alabama needs to improve on.
Yes, as we get the break here, we want to thank you for tuning in and listening to the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care. We want to thank the good folks over at North River Timber Company CO. North River Timber Company, LLC. If you have timberland in West Alabama and around the state, you need to call Courtney White or Chase Pearson. You can reach them at 205-242-5127 or 205-799-0665. That's North River Timber Company, LLC, timber harvesting, appraisals, land management, and more. Or email them at northrivertimberco@gmail.com. Courtney White says, if you have land, it's like having money in the bank and you need to maximize that potential. In order to maximize it, give Courtney White a call at 205-242-5127. That's North River Timber Company. All right. Hey, we're going to be back in just a moment. X, I appreciate you. Listeners and callers, we appreciate you. Thanks for being part of the program. We'll be back in just a moment to get things rolling. All right. Welcome back in. Don't forget, hey, normally you'd be able to call it 205-342-9904, the Empowerment Strategy Solutions Hotline, but we're doing an all-out live stream today. X and Kennington got a couple comments happening over on the chat side. Chuck Hunt talking Western Kentucky wide receiver Keyshawn Johnson is a transfer from Alabama State. Watched him play State, talented receiver. That defense of Womack shut down everybody. And here's the question I have, Kennington. I like to take the pulse of Alabama fans. Kennington. So many complain about that 21 play drive. Two things I want to point out about that drive that should settle the Bama fans down. Number one, is that was all backups and for most of that drive.
Yeah.
Until the very end.
Until the very end.
Until it was time to shut the door.
Yeah. so that's number one. So you guys picked up on that too. I was trying to tell Alabama fans, you can't. And then the other part was they had 3 or 4 fourth downs. They did get off the field on third down in a typical game. You just can't. You just don't expect the team to be desperate enough to go for 3 or 4 fourth downs in the first half. It was taking them 4 downs to get first downs consistently. It wasn't like they were getting first, second, first down, first, second, third, first down. It was first, second, third, fourth down, first down, first, second, third, fourth, first down. X, toss it to you.
Yeah, that is really true about that drive. And I mean, the guys played well, regardless. You making the team have to use that many plays, that many fourth down opportunities. You're doing something right. And with experience, those guys will get off the field for sure on those third down, and 3 downs and out type situation.
Here's the key. Let me say this real quick, X. I went back. This is what you have to check. What are they averaging per play? Rush was 2 yards. Pass was 2.6 yards. Okay. Do you understand that if you average 2.5 yards per play, you get a first down every 4 downs? I don't care. Alabama, that would be the longest drive of the year. and if it takes you 21 plays to get to the 20-yard line, I'm going to take that all year long because you're going to make a mistake 9 times out of 10 drives if it takes you that long to score. What did I say we did not want to see in this game? Wide receivers running wide open for busted plays.
Yep.
No big plays.
I'm looking at the game notes right now. It was a 21-yard drive, 21 plays that went for 70 yards.
That's right.
3 yards of, like you said, literally 3 yards in a cloud of dust.
Longer on that drive, and we had the entire first half.
Repeat that.
But I was go ahead.
They had the ball longer on that drive than we had the ball the entire first half.
Yeah. And also on that note about silver linings, like there's going to be a great teaching moment for a lot of those young guys because there were some opportunities for Bama to turn a 3rd and long into a 4th and long, but a 3rd and long turned into a 4th and manageable because of some missed tackles and some poor angles and those type of things. So those are going to be really good teaching moments, I think, for some young players on that drive.
Let me ask you this. Was he as aggressive, though, with that group as he was with the other group? Because it seemed like we played more coverage on those 3rd and longs than we did after the quarterback.
Yeah.
I think it was a combination.
Yeah, I would say not so much. He wasn't bringing as much pressure. No, the front 4 was getting a good rush with that 4, but they were dropping back. But I'm thinking of one in particular. It was a 3rd and 14 that turned into, I believe, like a 4th and 4 on a couple of missed tackles. So just kind of, little things like that to clean up. Obviously they played a great game, but, if we're going to pick something marginal, I would probably say something like that.
Right. And one thing we hadn't talked about yet, Caleb who? Caleb who? We lost a safety in the transfer portal. That was the start of this past spring. I'm sorry. Nah. Kitty, your thoughts? Excuse me, on Keon Sabb's performance in this game and what he was able to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alabama was very fortunate to get a player who I think we all agree was ascending towards the end of last year. You could see his confidence growing. You could see his play elevating, kind of culminated in the national championship. And he's just continued to move forward from there. So great get by Bama. Kind of a sidebar. Hope Dabo Swinney paid attention to something like that. Like you lose at Caleb Downs, but you can just go into the portal and get a starting safety from a national championship team and just plug and play. So I think the board and the staff did great in the transfer portal, kind of plugging some holes in. And Keon Sabb and Malachi Moore, I think, are going to be a much talked about safety duo as we get into the season.
Yeah, and let me comment on that really quick. When you look at Sab, I think that Downs is, of course, the more physical guy, but I think what's the name? Ball skills is better. God, because he actually could have had 3 interceptions. Um, but his break on the ball, his positioning, I think, like I said, I don't know that he's as physical, but I do think his ball skill are probably higher. And that's game one. I get that. And who knows how much of elite Downs would have taken in ball skills. This guy is an older player, so I'm not in any way dogging Downs. It was just good to see that your biggest loss may not be as big a loss as you thought. And so I don't want to downplay Downs at all. Let me ask you this about the tackling, guys, and let you guys respond. What about the to me, other than that one drive that you mentioned, Kennington, and I agree with that. Saw some guys ducking their heads a little bit, um, in in missing tackles. But as far as the physical wrapping up of tackles, you didn't see a lot of broken tackles. You saw some missed tackles, but not a lot of broken tackles. What were your thoughts there?
Yeah, most definitely. They did a great job of rallying to the ball. It was, I would say for 3.75 quarters, it was wrap up, put them on the ground. Like they weren't allowing a lot of yards after contact. So saw a couple of those. I think there was another play somewhere in the second quarter, a swing pass. Jaheim Otis had him 1 yard past the line of scrimmage. It kind of turned into like a 6 yard play, kind of spun out of it. Stuff like that. The kind of marginal things you just want to see them, get the guy on the ground as soon as possible. So there were probably a couple of instances of that. I feel like they'll get those corrected, but overall, I thought it was a sound performance as far as rallying to the ball and tackling overall.
Yeah, they moved around. They did a lot of things the right way, and you can't. It's hard to nitpick this game, but you feel like it's kind of what we got to do after a big win. Um, for me, just offensively, I think this team looked really good at the end of the day, doing a lot of the small things right. Once they got settled in, there's some guys I'm in a group chat with, and they were like, "Oh man, we're doing this." Yeah, it was 28-0 at the end of the first quarter after we had some struggles, or 21-0 at the end of the first after we had some struggles, and we dominated the game. I think Alabama's in a good position, and I just want to see Alabama build on this. Once it doesn't have to be 63-0 again next week, but just build off of this performance, tweak the little things that need to be tweaked, tighten those things up, and Alabama will be in good position.
Yeah, Kennington, when you look at this, you mentioned the offense and the moving linemen. Okay, um, I sent a note to someone and I said, I think all 5 rushing touchdowns had one or more pulling linemen. I,
Yes.
I think all 5 did.
Yeah.
Every time we pulled one or more linemen, we scored a touchdown, and it didn't matter if we were at the 15 or at the our 15 or
The
the
other
opposing
15.
15.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna tell you that 85-yard run. I have to give a shout out. I take credit for Wilkin for him because I coached him in high school. So I taught him everything he knows. But anyway, not just kidding. But that the old school guard tackle counter play. Here we are. We're talking about Nick Saban physicality. Nick Saban physicality. We're talking DeBoer. Spread them out. Spread them out. Spread them out. And the good for me was, to your point, O-line movement. O-line movement and that guard tackle, that's a physical Pittsburgh Steeler, old school, throwback to the day. And I think that they've found something that these small teams aren't going to be ready for. Because when you do that, Kennington, X, you're putting a guard and a tackle on an outside linebacker and a cornerback.
Yeah, it was. And then, like I said, the variety in which it was happening. Like Milroe's first touchdown, it was Booker Roberts. Then on Jam's
Yeah.
touchdown, it was Parker Brailsford and Tyler Booker. Then on Justice Haynes' touchdown, it was Jaden Roberts, Wilkin Formby. It was just every which way they were shifting, moving, and then think about with the mind that DeBoer has, the type of play calling that they can layer off of that.
They didn't
Once,
run they didn't
yeah,
run the pass plays off of it.
yeah. So it's exciting to see, and I think this kind of go back to the point of the offensive line shedding weight so they can move in space. Last year's offensive line was not going to be able to execute those type of blocks with the weight that they were carrying, not at that efficiency where all 5 of those plays all went for touchdowns. So you have to give Chris Capulovis some credit. And the offensive line is going to be, I think, a continuous storyline with Caden Proctor's injury. If there is a silver lining to that, it's that Elijah Pritchett and Wilkin Formby can both get extensive reps at the same time, and you can evaluate them both. And in a lot of ways, if Caden Proctor had never transferred back to Alabama, this would be the starting offensive line anyway. It's a little bit different because Pritchett didn't play all August at left tackle, obviously, but exiting fall camp, exiting spring practice, this was the starting lineup. Yeah. So you get a chance to evaluate, Wilkin and Pritchett, and then make a decision once Proctor gets healthy.
Well, and for me, I'm going to tell you, I was happy that Pritchett got the start. I'm not happy that what's the name got hurt at all. Don't hear me out. But in my own way, being a ball player, I was like, okay, dude, you stuck it out. You didn't quit. You didn't run. You saw this guy coming back. You could have became a cancer. You could have done all of those things. You could have not been engaged. You could have, licked your wounds, any of that. But you came and you played and you fought for a starting position, but undoubtedly you did so much and you did so good that the coaches had faith to move you to left tackle to start the game without a second thought. So I was happy for him, and hopefully this gets in his head and helps him make the right choices moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with Pritchett, as Tyler Booker said at the end of spring practice, it's just it's a confidence thing. So he's trying to continuously instill confidence in him and let him know that he's doing the right thing. So to that point, the fact that they, without a second thought, put him in at left tackle, and then you hear DeBoer in the post game praising how he was just able to adapt and fall back on his spring practice, should give Pritchett a confidence boost for sure going into this next week and the rest of the season. So I think obviously there's some things to work on with the offensive line. It wasn't a perfect day overall, but definitely some good things to build off of. And you feel good about the tackle situation once Proctor gets back. You feel like you have 3 capable guys there.
Yeah, and you look, as y'all said, it was reverting back. This is what it would have been if Proctor stays at Iowa. And Elijah Pritchett, rough start, but finished strong, played his butt off the rest of the game. And I think if Proctor's out for a while, I'm confident that as he gets adjusted back to the switching of the pass set to the left side, that he'll be in good we'll be in good hands at that spot. But we're going to go ahead and get the break, and then when we come back on the other side, we're going to hit the good, the bad, the ugly, and also hit around the nation real quick and around the SEC.
Give Dixie Battery Supply a call, and you'll never feel powerless again. Stock up with batteries from their Tuscaloosa and Northport stores. When you visit Dixie Battery Supply, you can count on finding every kind of battery you need from top battery brands. Or, hey, you may be in the market and need a reconditioned battery. They start at $39.99. Try and get rid of all those old batteries with no more juice left. They'll buy those back by the pound or by the unit. Don't contribute to pollution by just tossing them out. Turn to Dixie Battery Supply, and they will be there to help you Regardless of what type of device you're looking to power up, you can power up those devices at Dixie Battery Supply. Call them at 205-758-9190, 205-758-9190, or visit DixieBatterySupply.com. And while you're there, ask them about those golf carts. They will take care of you. They buy junk batteries. That's DixieBatterySupply.com.
All right, as we get back and get ready to kick off this fourth quarter of the first Monday after the football season is kicked off, Alabama with a 63-0 win over Western Kentucky. Kennington, when you look at this game, what was the good that you could take away from it?
The good, I would say, outside of the front seven, I would say the freshman corners, the freshman defensive backs, I felt like played with great composure. I think a good snapshot of that was Red Morgan getting, a pass interference, and then later on in the drive making some good plays, especially a downfield pass deflection. So thought the young guys played with some, great composure, and I think that's a good omen for the rest of the season.
That I think you already said you're good, but go ahead and give it to us one more time.
I had several goods. I just think the overall, day one debut, the DeBoer era got off to a offensive juggernaut, 63 points. And I have said that if this team can do what they're supposed to do offensively, in the defense, just be top 15 to top 10, then Alabama has a legit shot to make a national championship run. And you can't build off of that one game, but everything you want to see against an opponent that you're superior to, Alabama did. And so the swarm defense was a plus for me. The 63 was the good on the offensive side. So I loved it. I thought we were physical on both sides of the ball. And after the first quarter, Kennington X, I think the start of the game with the headsets threw everything out of kilter. I think Proctor's injury did. But once they settled in, I think we had maybe 2 penalties after the first 10 minutes of the game. So that was good for me.
Yeah, my good from this game has to be the overall performance, the intensity and the aggressiveness that this team came out with. When you look at how just everything that this team is going through, the leadership, the guys that stayed, the losing of the greatest coach of all time, and to come out with this performance for Coach DeBoer's first start couldn't have been better, in my opinion. And it's a jump on to the next one. Kennington, what is your bad if you got one?
Yeah, I would say the bad would be Proctor's injury. I mean, it's just a kind of another setback. He hasn't played football in a long time. Obviously, we know about the transfer situation, and then his first game finally gets here. It's feels like, I guess, like a freak accident or something happened to where he gets hurt. So just another setback for him. You feel for him, obviously, but I would say the bad just because of the delay, and then also we just don't know the severity of that injury yet. So I'll have to slide that into the bad category.
And that would be my bad as well. Just everything that Kennington said is the bad for me with Proctor. But he seemed engaged, and it could go from bad to ugly, in my opinion, if this is a long-term injury. I heard people starting to report out for the season. I'm not thinking that. He act like a guy who was disappointed, but not a guy who was like dejected on the sideline. You can just tell the difference when it's an injury, what it can be. I think he had to be smart with it. But if he's out, long term all season, then that becomes ugly, because my biggest question for this team, or biggest threat to this team, was depth on the offensive line.
100% about the depth on the offensive line with that. And that probably has to be my bad too. The injury, you hate to see that, especially with all the work that you've heard he's put in to get in better shape, to get reacclimated, and reintegrated into this team. You hate to see that week one he doesn't get a chance to show that, but hopefully not a long-term injury and he bounces back quick. Kennington, any ugly from this game?
Yeah, if I could pick a ugly, I would say the pass protection was not great, to be honest. You think about the strip sack on the second play with Pritchard. Real World didn't feel the pressure until it was too late, but Pritchard did get beat. Not so much pass protection, but Parker Belfort selling a snap over Jalen Milroe's head. There was a play when Jalen Milroe had the 40-yard touchdown. They sent a blitz. The pocket kind of collapsed, but he was able to find a hole and escape. There were several moments I think on his dropbacks where it wasn't a clean pocket, but he was still able to make plays in spite of that. So not a lot of ugly to choose from, but if I could pick that, I would say that part of the offense was a little inconsistent.
I think I'm going to have to change this to the good, the bad, the mistake, the way what's his name said it, instead of ugly, because there really wasn't any ugly. And I'll ask you, the first one was probably to me the only one that was like ugly, that first snap. Several of the other times, Kennington and X, I think that Jalen this is what's interesting. I had people saying, well, he's holding the ball too long in the pocket. And I'm going, last year we never said that because he never had time to hold it in the pocket. Number two is that pressure got to him because he took off because he wasn't going through his progressions. So you can't have a quarterback who stays in the pocket for a length of time if there's not better pass pro, and if they're going to go through their progression, you're going to have to hold the ball longer. And of course, Ryan Williams' touchdown was one of those times. Once again, you guys didn't hear this, Kennington. What's his name talked about the quarterback and the center not being on the same page. And that's what led to the turnover, the board.
Yeah.
So
it might not be a pass protection as much as just like on pass plays, there wasn't that same synergy like it was relative to like the run plays.
I agree. Yeah. So
so it's like
mistake versus ugly.
Right. Yeah. We're nitpicking here. There wasn't a lot of ugly, but if I could pick, like if we have to find a negative in a 63-0 win, it would have to be on a handful of pass plays. It just wasn't buttoned up the same relative to the run.
It wasn't as clean as you would like, but I think I think Jalen being able to be Jalen is going to be huge, because last year that his long run would have been a sack because he would not have been as decisive. When he felt that pressure and then took off, and X, I know you had something to say about that. He could have stepped up, and that's what he would have done last year, and then got sacked. He's not trying to prove to everybody he's a passer this year.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And so that led to that long run.
Yeah. I also felt he was really good actually in his progressions when he did have time. He went through his progressions, and then on other quick plays, you saw quick processing, you saw quick decision making, you saw accuracy off the rip. So you could definitely can see the growth and the confidence in his game from last year to this year.
Oh yeah, you can definitely see the growth and maturity of the standing in there, making the hard throw when you have pressure, but also going, okay, nobody's open. Let me use my God-given talent and use my legs and take off. And he did that several times throughout the course of the game in the right moments.
X, before you move on, his first touchdown pass, I'd like to get Kennington's thought, because you don't think about that being growth, right? But what did he do? He pulled it down to run, and he was about to explode. And what did he do? He saw he had a receiver, and literally that was almost an option pass. But instead of him running it, he gave it to his dude who took it in. So to me, that shows that when he pulls it down, he still had his head up and was still looking. So to me, that was a growth step as well. X.
100%. And I kind of agree with Kennington. It's nitpicking, but the pass protection got better as the game went along and they got a little more settled in. But just the miscommunication a little bit on the snap, and then as well as the early pressure. But Alabama was able to get that fixed. And you even saw the second group. The second group looked good. They gave Ty some time in the pocket to make some throws. The funniest one was to me, Ty. One time Ty didn't trust his guys. Uh, when he spun out. I don't know if y'all can see it on TV, Kennington. I'm pretty sure you can. Richard Young cleaned the blitzing cornerback or outside linebacker. Absolutely took him off of his feet. And Ty just should have trusted him a little bit longer.
He actually spun into the block.
Yeah, he was say he like spun into the rusher.
The pressure, yeah. Man. But hey, listen, we haven't talked about this as a whole. Kennington, this is only your second year. So last year, we didn't see it. We hadn't seen it in a while. Big run plays, explosive run plays. And I get 20 yards of an explosive run play, but Alabama used to regularly see, the Derrick Henry and backwards era and stuff like that. You used to regularly see a guy go 50 yards or 40 yards or 60 yards. I think we're going to see some of that this year. I was excited about the run. As much as we've talked about the pass game, to me, to see the run game do what it did the old fullback heart what good.
Yeah. I mean, you look at even like outside of those, Milroe is going to take some those run plays that he had, those sweeps felt like free money. And like, I know there were Alabama fans maybe slightly pulling their hair out. Like, why weren't we running these plays last year?
Yeah.
So to see that in game one, to see that kind of multi-layered attack has to be exciting. And this is something that Jalen Milroe has been saying throughout August. He's like, we are not a one-dimensional offense. We're multi-dimensional. We can hurt you in different ways. And we got a chance to see that, game one. So I know DeBoer didn't unload the full clip, obviously, against Western Kentucky. So I'm just excited to see, kind of as they get into the SEC slate, kind of how diverse this offense can really get.
Yeah, the explosive plays in the run game was the thing to see, and you saw it from all of the guys. That's what I loved about it. It wasn't just Jam. It wasn't just Justin. It wasn't just Jalen when but you saw all three of those guys make explosive plays and plays that made you go, "Oh wow, these guys are dangerous." It was, oh man, it was funny. One of my buddies said, "Oh man, Jam's RB1 after his run." And then when Justice broke his, he was like, okay, maybe we got two RB1s. Like just that reaction and excitement of seeing these guys do what they do best and get out in the open, get out on the edge. And we talked about the guard tackle pulls, the way those guys were just setting that hole, man, was perfect. Loved watching that as a guy that played the running back position, man, because you just could see it open up. And when it opened up, those guys took full advantage of it.
Yeah, and I'll peel off of that and get Kennington's update on what he has this week. But to me, what I loved is I wasn't worried about. There wasn't a lot of devastating blocks, but they were positioned like everybody. Like when what's his name went 85 yards, sealed and kicked out, and he split them. You saw that type of thing there. And to me, what's his name looked like he was playing on the Xbox or PlayStation, Jalen Milroe. But we would be remiss if we don't hit this, Kennington. Ty Simpson has grown as a quarterback, and the dude. And the reason I feel good about the offensive line is when Ty came in, when he pulled it, he looked like he could hurt you with his legs. And makes you feel more comfortable that if Jalen were to have to come out or whatever, that Alabama doesn't have to just trash the Jalen Milroe version of our offense. They change the percentages.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Ty has gotten progressively better every time we've seen him from the South Florida game. I thought the Kentucky game, he took a step. And then the Chattanooga game, he looked well. And then in the spring game, we saw him. It looked like he took another step, looked like his internal clock, and those things were getting faster. So I've been impressed with his development as well. And I've said this before. It's very crazy the difference a year can make, because at this point a year ago, many people thought that this was still probably the biggest question mark on the team, the quarterback position. And if we're ranking best position groups, this has got to be one that's near the top. So, just great development by those guys, and a rarity, for them. I feel like we have to tip our cap to those two, because very rarely in college football do two guys compete for a starting position and then both of them are still in the same quarterback room the next season.
Yeah, and I'm hoping, Kennington, that Ty watched last night's game of LSU and USC, and the benefit of staying in a system when you to wait for your chance, because we just saw two guys that may, if they play off of what they did, they may follow up their Heisman Trophy, starters before them to be first round quarterbacks. Those dudes balled out last night. I don't know how good either defense was, but they were putting the ball on the money. If you got to see USC and LSU play, and they executed, you could tell these guys are mature and have been in a system for multiple years. Kennington, tell us what you got coming up this week. Also, we need to get your thoughts around the SEC and the nation.
Yeah, so got an Alabama film study, coming out, here probably in the next few hours. So breaking down positives and negatives for both sides is going to be, I think, a fun read for the fans. Quick, easy, digestible. So looking forward to that. Starting up an SEC mailbag this year with the Athletics. So we're going to be dropping that on Friday. So answering topics from around the SEC. Look forward to that. I have a special story regarding Dallas Turner that is set to release this week. So looking forward to that feature. And then, anything else, noteworthy around the SEC or in Alabama, we'll be touching on that too. So obviously a busy week at the Athletic. All these weeks are going to be busy, honestly, until January. So come join us over here, and we're having a great time. And then my thoughts about the SEC. We have to start with this. Martin, my OG, did I not tell you that Clemson was getting smoked?
Hey, leave me alone, man. Leave me alone. Hey, let me tell you what Clemson's missing. I don't think Georgia is good as we think. I think Clemson just doesn't have an offense.
Yeah,
Clemson defense just got tired.
Yeah, I think it was
in the first half was as good as Georgia. In the second half, it was like it's demoralizing, I guess. I don't know. It was like because I like Bobo. No, I respect him because
Bobo did not have a great first half.
Right.
Second half, he opened it up a little bit, but he absolutely took points off the board in one drive where Georgia had like a 30-plus yard gain. Next play, swing past to Branson Robinson, lost 6 or 7, and then just derailed the drive. Wasn't a great half by him, but continue.
Let me ask you, one of our listeners, Curtis Moore II, said, is Garrett Riley fool's gold? Because Clemson looks, but see, to me, it's not that. You have to understand, Dabo won with the formula. X and I talked about this. X, tell him what formula that, and he doesn't have either one of those pieces. And I think defensively, they're as good as they were when they were winning.
Yeah, when you look at the way Dabo played, the quarterbacks that he had, those guys were top of echelon guys, but the wide receivers that they had were also top echelon guys. And right now, Cade Klubnik and DJ Uiagalelei, when you look at them, they were good for the weapons that they had around them. But neither one of those guys had a T. Higgins, a Sammy Watkins, a Mike Williams. The list goes on of those guys. I'm not even sure if they've got a Hunter Renfrow that they can really rely on to be that guy to catch a ball when you need him to. So I think that's a lot of what's going on with that. So when you take that Justin Ross, I can't believe I forgot his name before his injury. That guy was a first-round draft pick. But that's the formula that they had, and he hasn't been able to get that combo back.
And here, I'll say this, Kennington, I submit to you and you get it. I give it to you. But the other part I would add is I did not realize how reluctant Dabo was to the portal. They showed a
Yeah.
stat. Have you seen the stat?
He's like they've like never taken a transfer or something like that, or they've taken like
It's not.
one
He's never
since
had a starter since 2018.
18. Yeah,
He's not
which
had a
is
single starter that transferred in.
yeah, it's
That
it is
that
it's
is now that's tough, right?
it's remarkable. It's remarkable, especially when you think
because
about we're talking about wide receivers. Do you not think Dabo could have used Keon Coleman? Do you
yeah,
not think Dabo could have used the Jamison Williams?
yeah. So
Like,
that
Yeah.
the crazy part for me is before the portal, that would be in that would be a before the portal opened, Alabama had starters from transfer. You see what I'm saying? So that's not even that. But I would give it when you do this. I think the announcers, to me, they that's all they talked about the whole game. But to me, the best thing that they said about it, and I may tell Dabo, it's too late for this year, right? But the big question becomes, they said, even if you don't think that there's a guy to start, two reasons to maybe bring a transfer in. When the starter gets hurt, you have a veteran guy like we did with Vandermark, right? And number two is competition. If you don't have anybody to make the quarterback push better, then you have to go out and get somebody. If you don't have somebody to push the wide receiver, you go get somebody. And those two were valid points. But even with that said, I think Clemson still may end up winning the ACC.
right,
I'm not sure
exactly.
that Georgia is the best litmus test to say that Dabo's team isn't ready, because Georgia executed at such a high level in the second half. Oh, that hurts to say, but
Yeah, I don't think this game was anything more than just this game to me wasn't anything more than just the confirmation of what people have been saying about Dabo Sweeney. And there's a larger question to be had, but that's not a question for right now, obviously, because they still have a season to play. So that was kind of my big takeaway. And the last thing I'll say on this topic is if you're a Clemson fan, maybe the most disheartening part of all of this is you sitting at home and watching highlights of Jeremiah Smith and Cam Coleman and Ryan Williams and all these freshman receivers having big days, and you have TJ Moore and Brian Wesco, a pair of 5 stars that basically didn't play at all
Yeah.
against Georgia. There were veterans, Cole Turner, Adam Randall, who combined for a catch apiece, and you have these talented freshmen that weren't, given the same opportunity. You look around the country, you see their peers getting a chance to play at high majors and do well. So I know Georgia's a different level of competition, obviously, but I'm sure Clemson fans will want to see those young receivers get turned loose at some point.
yeah. So take us through your jaunt around your biggest takeaways of the kind of the top 10. Georgia looked like that the offseason lyrics or conversation X and guys were true, that they were upset about not getting in. Not so much for Michigan, um, not so much for um, not so much for Michigan, not so much for Oregon. I think some of the preseason hype has to be in question, Kenan, as you go around the country. What other big takeaways did you have?
Yeah, I mean, I think the team that probably made the biggest statement, even above Georgia, would probably be Miami, even though they didn't play the same caliber opponent. But the way that they were able to just dismantle Florida
Mm,
was jarring to watch. And I think there was going into the game, at least me personally, it felt like Miami and Florida were at very similar places as programs, like, the brand, the supposed talent, but not the same on field results. And that was a separation game, I think, from Miami to Florida. And that paired with what we've seen from other ACC contenders. NC State struggled in their first game. Now you feel like Miami's in the driver's seat in the ACC. So that was a big takeaway that I had. And I thought Notre Dame, that was an impressive win, I think, going on the road at Texas A&M, being able to just kind of physically handle that defense that we had high expectations for. That was a notable takeaway. On the other side of it, I mean, Oregon was a head scratching performance, I think. To come out only best Idaho by 10 points. You look at other contemporaries around the sport who played lesser opponents. Bama won by 63. Ole Miss won by 76. Ohio State won by over 50. You look at all the top 10 teams that played Group of Five or FCS level opponents. All of them pretty much handled their business except for Oregon. So that stuck out to me as well. So I'll be watching them a little bit closer.
Yeah, I mean I think Oregon was the biggest shock of the day. I don't think it is. It's hard to say just because 24 points, you give up 14. Dylan Gabriel had a heck of a performance, 41 for 49, tied the school record for most completions in a game. It was ugly though. I mean, and Michigan ends up winning by 20. But when you're talking about what you expected, that game was it 16-10 in the fourth quarter at one point, and Michigan got 2 late touchdowns to make the league bigger than what it really was. Some of these top teams, and what's going on with them? And then once again, you got tonight, you got Florida State, who's already lost the game. What are they going to look like against Boston College with a quarterback that is a more athletic version of what they had to deal with against Georgia Tech? Maybe Boston College doesn't have the offensive line, but they've got the same caliber of skill players. So it's going to be interesting to watch how some of these top teams bounce back after subpar performances, even though they won the game.
And I'll add this, Kennington. First of all, that's why preseason polls don't mean a whole lot. The first poll should come out this week. Michigan. Who would pick any SEC school that lost 5 starting offensive linemen as a top team? No one should, right? And that's the reality of what Michigan was. Michigan was the national championship, and they got a lot of love in top 10 because of the fact they were coming off a national championship team. Let me throw you a curveball, Kennington, really quick. If Hunter was anywhere else in a major college, would he be walking? Would he be the number one Heisman candidate, and would he have locked it up after week 1?
Yeah, no, that was I think him and Shador are going neck and neck. Honestly, you want to talk about one of the national takeaways? I can't believe I forgot Colorado. Shador Sanders, that was incredible.
Yeah,
That was incredible. What we watched. Travis Hunter obviously speaks for himself. So I can't wait to watch the game against Nebraska on Saturday. It's like that game, Texas, Michigan, is going to be a pretty awesome week 2 slate. But you are right. If Travis Hunter was doing what he's doing at a Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, I mean, it would be. He's already a celebrity, but I think his fanfare would be at an even another level than what it is right now. But Shador, I mean, they're neck and neck for it right now.
Yeah, man, the catch he made. I don't know if you saw his
that was
where he was being pushed out of bounds, falling down, reached underneath, one hand underneath the guy, the other hand over the guy's shoulder. I mean, like I said, impressive what he's doing. And like I said, he's not doing this against nobody. The question is, can he sustain it for a year? Both of those guys look like they beefed up a little bit, especially Shador. And we'll see. If Shador wasn't prime son, I think he'd be getting more love. I think people hesitate on him just because of his dad, and they think the hype may be more there than his play. But if he can do it for a season, he has a legit shot to make some noise.
Yeah. Anybody who's thinking that it's more hype than substance did not watch that game last Thursday.
Eggs. I'll talk to you.
Kennington, when you we talked about Oregon, that was kind of a disappointment. They won the game. But was there you're a media guy, you see this guy. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not too upset about LSU losing last night. Because if you're on X at all, Twitter, you see there's a certain LSU talking head that loves to Bama's burning, Bama's burning. Uh, what are your thoughts about LSU's performance last night and where they stand, especially after Brian Kelly was a little heated in that press conference after the game?
Yeah, that was I think that was my biggest takeaway is that Brian Kelly, immediately comes out. He says, this is the first time I'm angry with my team. We keep having the same conversation. We're losing, because of these unsportsmanlike penalties and what have you. And my takeaway is, well, that's a coaching issue. This is an undisciplined team. If you're telling us that this is a continuous theme, we're back here week one talking about the same thing again. You're banging on the tables. This is an undisciplined team. And say what you want about like a Georgia, for example. People say they have a culture issue about the speeding and all of that, and that's another conversation. But you won't see Georgia players firing shotguns at players on the field getting 15-yard penalties.
No.
You're not going to see Georgia beat themselves with unsportsmanlike conduct penalties and those type of things, because at the end of the day, on the field, they're a disciplined team.
Yes.
That's what that was my big takeaway from LSU, was that this is at this point an undisciplined team. This was a game that both coaches needed bad. You got to credit Lincoln Riley for getting a must-have win, and LSU's got to go back to the drawing board.
And I'll quickly say this: Georgia, it's hard. The only reason I give them any credit is because my daughter's there. If she wasn't over there, I'd be really bad. But Georgia's legit, right? And they do have some off the field cultural issues, to your point, Kennington. But the reality of it is, some of that is also environment of where they're at. I mean,
Yeah,
they're such a big freaking fish in a small town. Like if you were to put Georgia's performance in LA, you probably would even notice some of the. And I'm not being ugly with that. These kids are doing things wrong, but they're not doing anything different than probably the 99% of college students.
yeah. Who
It's
would have?
just that it's just that in that small town, they're easy targets.
Yeah,
And between me and you, the academic people at Georgia don't like the fact that Georgia is now known more for its sports than its academics. That is a big battle that goes on with a lot of these academic colleges and sports teams. And Kirby hasn't figured out how to bridge that gap, in my opinion. Because we used to suffer from that here in Tuscaloosa. Same thing. If a player did something, they were getting busted, but it was 20 other students doing the same thing, but they didn't get busted. So I I give them, to your point, on the football field, they're well coached. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Um, you know, do the coaches kind of create that environment sometimes off the field? Yes, by the way they choose to punish or not punish. But maybe ETN being on the sideline and Kirby saying it may be one game or it may be multiple games might be what gets their attention, because I think he could have played him and nobody would have thought anything of it.
yeah. And then especially, it kind of reinforces the message when you're on the sideline suspended, and then somebody else is in your spot having an awesome game that Nate Frazier had,
Yeah.
getting a chance to earn some reps. At the end of the day, these kids want to play, they want to be on the field, they want to be getting their tape. And, if you're off the field, mistakes are going to lead to you not, being on the field and ultimately potentially getting your spot taken. That's not going to happen to ETN, I don't think, but another player, that is well within play. So
He lost some reps.
he did. Oh,
He
most
lost some
definitely.
reps.
Most definitely. Most definitely. So, good on Kirby. But back to the the LSU thing. They're gonna have some questions to answer. And another takeaway that I had, again, all the talk about Harold Perkins and his role and what they're gonna be doing to kind of unlock him on the defense.
What?
Brian Kelly, we're having the same conversation again. You're talking about discipline on the field. We're talking about Harold Perkins. This is the same conversation from last year. So they're at a few different crossroads, both, culture wise and personnel wise, that they need to address, and quickly.
How can you hide that kind of talent? I don't know, but Brian Kelly can do it.
He's done it for 2 years.
that guy didn't even know what he was doing as a freshman, and you couldn't block him. And now that they're coaching him and supposedly building stuff around him, he's a no-show. It's the craziest thing I think I've ever seen in terms of pure talent.
Right. Somebody who talent-wise and athletically is a consensus high-round draft pick. It's pretty remarkable. It's also like very like interesting because I said this, to my friends last night in the group chat as a joke. It's like I'm old enough to remember when LSU was known for their defense. I'm old enough to remember when LSU was DBU.
Yeah.
No, they've kind of completely, obviously gone away from that. So, LSU, I think, is, kind of searching for an identity offensively. Obviously, they know how to throw the ball downfield. The running game needs some work, but all of a sudden, they've become a really interesting team in the SEC because, Brian Kelly has some questions to answer.
Yeah. Kennington, before we get out of here, what are your thoughts on the game this weekend and a score prediction from you?
Yeah. Looking forward to the game. I think, with all due respect to TJ Finley, Alabama's going to face a more formidable quarterback on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to watching, Brown and that offense against Alabama's defense. I think it'll be a step up in competition. I don't know what the spread is for Bama. I'm sure it's somewhere in the 30s. I'll probably take them to cover, maybe like 41-10. Maybe like 30. So 41-10 feels about right. I think South Florida does get on the board, but I expect Alabama to dominate. And at that point, it'll be all eyes on Wisconsin. So I expect Alabama to take care of their business in convincing fashion.
Yeah, Kennington, you just said, did you see them play Wisconsin?
Yeah. All of a sudden, that game has lost some steam.
Yeah, man, because they were losing 14-13, and then a ball hit a Western Michigan player in the back.
Yeah,
and they got the ball in scoring range. Until then, they were getting manhandled. I mean,
yeah. The thing with Wisconsin is like for that game to be what it's hyped up to be for Alabama, Wisconsin as a program needed to come out and have 2 dominant wins in a row. Like maybe they're 2-0, maybe they're 25th, and it's kind of like a early game. You're 2-0, you're catching Alabama early. Crowd's gonna be there. There's gonna be excitement, and now it feels like there's not gonna be that same level of enthusiasm from the Wisconsin side because of that game against Western Michigan. It's like, okay, we struggled against Western Michigan. What's gonna happen when we play against Alabama? So maybe there will be some more confidence restored if Wisconsin has a good showing this weekend. But at this moment, I can say confidently from the Wisconsin side of it, there's not as much excitement and looking forward to this about this game after what we just saw.
Yeah. Well, hey, X, I'm going to wrap things up. Kennington, thanks for sticking around. Kennington, we're the only show in town today. The Tide Station is off, but I appreciate you. I could not miss the opportunity to talk about the Kalen DeBoer era getting started. And we can't do this without guys like you. And so we appreciate you getting up and sticking around for an extra 30 minutes there. To provide great content for our listeners and our viewers. And we have JJ Barrow wanted me to tell you he's glad we stopped with all that Georgia talk because Clemson had no offense whatsoever, none. If they did what have been, there wouldn't have been a game. No Watson, Trevor, and no OC. Georgia is not sane without Bowers and Ladd. Roll Tide. I figured I'd give that to you.
That is a fact. That what he said is a fact. Every year, Georgia's had at least one game-breaking player: George Pickens, A.D. Mitchell, Brock Bowers, Ladd McConkey. Yeah. Doesn't feel like that offense has that this year. So this goes back to the Mike Bobo conversation. He's gonna have to scheme some things up. We'll see how that plays out.
Well, and I thought it was interesting that he played his veteran quarterback in the first half like a freshman quarterback. Just passes out to the flat, short passes, nothing. And I said, okay, well, he's setting them up to take it deep, and he never did. Even with Smith, who's a burner, they still never did it in the first half. Second half, they came out and physically, I think they realized that they could wear them down with all those returning, even though they have a first-time starter at center. The guy just starting his first year because he was behind an All-American. Right. So not because he wasn't good enough to play. He's been starting at 9 out of 10 SEC schools. He just happened to be at Georgia. But, hey, give our listeners your closing thoughts, sir, and tell them once again where they can find you.
Yeah. On Twitter /X at skinnykenny_, theathletic.com, The Athletic, on your mobile apps where you get whatever you get them, searching my name, Kennington Smith, or anything related to Alabama athletics. Closing thoughts, I felt like this game was very much symbolic of Kalen DeBoer's time as Alabama's head coach. Just as smooth of a debut as you can imagine, just like his transition has been about as smooth as it could be. So, it's just one game. Obviously, they have to keep a good thing going, but really impressed with Alabama's performance. And let's not forget that Western Kentucky is actually a respectable Group of 5 team.
Yeah.
Like they've won 8 or 9 games for the last 5 years. This is not Idaho. This is not Chattanooga. This is not Akron. This is a team that could win Conference USA this year. So
they're picked to win it.
Right. So Alabama did what they were supposed to do, but they actually played a legitimate Division I team and did that to them. So really impressive. What I'm looking forward to this Saturday.
All right. Thanks, Kennington. We appreciate you, sir. We'll be back with you next week. And you got South Florida 41-10. X, I'll give it to you, closing thoughts, and then toss it back to me.
Alabama had a great performance this weekend, and a lot of things were done well. There's some things that Alabama definitely needs to work on, to improve, to build on what they did. And that's what I want to see this week through practice. If Proctor's going to be out, I want to see Elijah Pritchett getting back comfortable on that left side. I want to see the offensive line cohesion continue to gel and grow, because that's going to be a big part of the season down the stretch. And then just keep doing what they're doing the right way. Do I expect another 63-0 game? No, I don't. But just work on the small things. And if Alabama does that each week, they're going to be better. Win the week. You don't have to win the season every day. Just win the week.
Well, hey, that's Xavier Houston. That's Kennington Smith III. I'm Martin Houston. And, man, week 1, show number 1 in the post first victory, 1-0 for DeBoer. To me, did everything. He hit all the right buttons, touched all the right things. We'll keep the conversation going on tomorrow. We'll add DC Capstone Report to the conversation, and we invite you to join us back here on the live stream, the Martin Houston Show on Facebook. Tell your family and friends about it so that they know exactly what they're in store for. As we get the break here, we'll be back on tomorrow. I want to tell you about the Legacy Collection. Get your fishing license, co-branded Alabama swag. You need to go ahead and get it ordered now, the Legacy Collection. You can find it at athletesthread.com/collections/Martin-Houston. They have some unique legacy items. Even got a logo there that has my name in the bottom of the varsity A. Some cool pieces. Go check it out. Shop around. Help make fullbacks great again. For Martin Houston, for Kennington Smith III of The Athletic, at SkinnyKenny _. You're not going to find any better content out there than what he bringing to the table. And for our co-host, Xavier Houston, this has been the Martin Houston Show, powered by Box Eye Care. Remember this: trust in the Lord always, lean not your own understanding. All your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct